A column of strangers climbs out of the coastal desert and into cold that bites through mail. Francisco Pizarro rides at the front lean, scarred, with fewer than 200 men behind him. No baggage train worth a name. A few falconets lashed to mules, a priest with a small chest of books and oils, horses snorting in the thin air. The road they follow is not theirs. It is the Inca road, stone-paved, graded, and straight, running like a seam across the mountains. Way stations appear at measured intervals, storehouses stacked with maize and dried meat. The Spaniards pass them warily, taking what they can carry, burning nothing. They need the system intact. Messengers watch from the ridgelines. Runners vanish along side paths. Word travels ahead. Bearded men of thunder iron moving toward Cajamarca. At every village, the scale of the empire presses in terraced fields, combed into the slopes, canals etched through rock, labor crews working in rhythm under a foreman's signal. This land answers to one voice, a captain says. Not ours. The men nod. They have seen empires before, but not one that climbs like this, stair after stair into the clouds. Pizarro orders the pace steady, never panicked. He spreads the horsemen along the line to look larger. Scouts range out and back. When they cross a rope bridge, he dismounts and leads his horse by the bridle, eyes on the gorge. Below, water claws at the rocks. Above, watchers. News meets them on the trail. The Inca realm is split by civil war. Atahualpa, the younger brother, has broken Huáscar, the elder. Victorious armies gather at Cajamarca. Good, Pizarro says. A king who has just won is sure of himself, the priest adds quietly, and sure men make mistakes. They climb into breathless country. Frost whitens the grass at dawn. By noon, the sun burns faces raw. A mule slips and tumbles, packs scatter. A gun barrel bends. Men curse, then shoulder the pieces. No one stops. Every hour in open country is exposure. Allies appear in ones and twos, coastal interpreters, highland porters pressed to service, chiefs with quiet grudges against Cusco. They point the way to Cajamarca and speak of Atahualpa's camp. Thousands under banners, the Sapa Inca carried high on a litter, priests guarding sacred fires, generals with veteran regiments waiting only for orders. A ridge breaks and the basin opens Cajamarca, steam rising from hot springs, a walled plaza set like a trap in the hollow. Beyond, the royal camp sprawls, fires pricking the dusk. The Spaniards halt and take measure. The numbers are impossible. The opportunity is real. Pizarro gathers his officers in the fading light. Hernando, De Soto, the gunners, the priest. He marks the plaza with his gauntlet. There, he says. We will meet him there. The plan is not spoken in full. It does not need to be. Hide the horse. Mask the guns. Lure the ruler inside. A horse stamps. Somewhere below, horns answer one another across the basin. The air chills with the speed only mountains can manage. Cajamarca fills with soldiers. Atahualpa has just broken his brother Huáscar in civil war, seizing the throne with armies that number in the tens of thousands. Victory fires burn across the camps. Rows of warriors in feathered tunics. Companies drilling with slings, spears, and copper axes. Messengers run in and out, carrying orders bound in knotted cords. At the center of it all sits the Sapa Inca. He does not walk. He rides high on a litter borne by nobles, gold discs flashing at his ears, robes of fine alpaca dyed crimson. The people call him Intip Churin, the son of the Sunday. No one meets his eyes without bowing. Into this world step Pizarro's envoys. Hernando de Soto rides ahead with a handful of horsemen, hooves ringing on the stone causeway. To the Inca guard, the sight is both shocking and absurd. Beasts never seen before, armored men clinging to their backs. A murmur spreads through the ranks. Some reach for slings, others fall back. De Soto halts before the Inca camp. He bows, then spurs his horse suddenly, making it rear until its hooves strike the air inches from Atahualpa's litter. The ruler does not flinch. The nobles tighten their grip, eyes fixed forward. De Soto lowers the animal, unsettled by the silence. Messages are exchanged. The Spaniards invite Atahualpa to meet Pizarro in Cajamarca. The Inca agrees. Why should he fear a few hundred ragged strangers? He commands tens of thousands. His generals assure him, one signal, and the plaza can be filled with warriors from every direction. No open exits. Pizarro has hidden his men in the buildings that ring the square. Musketeers crouched behind shutters, cavalry with bridles wrapped to muffle sound, falconets loaded with shot. Only the friar, Vicente de Valverde, waits in the open, a cross in one hand and a Bible in the other. From the hills comes the sound of pipes and drums. Atahualpa enters in full procession, nobles carrying his litter, warriors in formation, dancers moving in step, banners of bright cloth swaying in the thin air. The Sapa Inca sits high, calm, wearing a crown of feathers, a cup of chicha in his hand. Behind him march thousands, though only a fraction enter the plaza. The rest remain outside, spread across the fields. The litter halts. The friar steps forward, voice rising in the empty square. He speaks of one God, one faith, one king across the sea. He offers the Bible, demanding submission. Atahualpa takes it, turns the pages, presses it to his ear. Hearing nothing, he flings it aside. Murmurs ripple through the nobles. Valverde runs to Pizarro, shouting, "Do you not see? The word of God is rejected." The signal is given. Cannons fire. Smoke fills the square. Trumpets blare, and the cavalry charge out of hiding. Iron hooves breaking bodies, lances driving into the press. Muskets crack from the walls. The plaza turns to chaos, screams. Drums cut short, the crash of falling standards. Through the storm, Pizarro drives forward, cutting through the crowd toward the golden litter. Nobles die where they stand, refusing to drop their burden. One by one, they are struck down until the litter tips and crashes. Atahualpa is seized in the crush, Pizarro himself clamping a gauntlet on his arm. When the smoke clears, the impossible is true. A handful of Spaniards hold the Inca emperor alive in chains. Thousands of his followers lie dead or scattered, while their king sits captive in a dark room of Cajamarca. Night settles over Cajamarca, but the square is silent. Fires burn in the hills where Inca armies wait, yet no assault comes. Their lord is alive, and until he commands, they hold back. Inside a stone chamber, Atahualpa sits in chains. Even captive, he carries himself as sovereign. When his generals are summoned, he orders them to obey Pizarro's demands. No one questions him. The voice of the Inca is still law. The Spaniards treat him with a strange mixture of fear and ceremony. He dines at Pizarro's table, drinks from golden vessels, receives visitors with dignity, but guards watch every move. One step, a captain warns, and he dies. Atahualpa studies his captors closely. He questions them about their king across the sea, about the steel they wield, about the animals they ride. He mocks their few numbers, but notes their discipline. He tests their resolve by demanding the death of his brother. Huascar, still held prisoner. Messages fly, and soon word arrives. Huascar has been killed. Even in chains, Atahualpa reshapes the war. Pizarro, meanwhile, sends reports down the coast. Cajamarca secured, the Sapa Inca in hand. Reinforcements and fortune are promised. Yet inside the walls, unease grows. The Spaniards know they are only hundreds, while the empire outside numbers in the tens of thousands. Their only shield is the man they have chained. Inca nobles continue to bow before Atahualpa, even as he sits on a rough stool in a foreigner's hall. The symbol of empire has not been broken, only confined. But Pizarro understands the danger. Every day, the armies in the hills grow restless, and patience has limits. In the dim chamber at Cajamarca, Atahualpa gestures to the walls. He raises his hand to a line above his head. "I will fill this room with gold," he says through interpreters, "and twice over with silver, if you release me." The Spaniards glance at one another. The chamber is large, 20 feet across, taller than a man on horseback. Pizarro nods slowly. "Let it be so. The bargain is struck." Messengers race across the Andes. From temples and palaces, shrines and fortresses, treasures begin to flow. Golden discs pried from walls, statues of jaguars and llamas, vessels hammered into sheets, ornaments carried in baskets. Caravans arrive under guard, laborers staggering under the weight of empire. The room fills piece by piece, idols stacked in corners, vases crowded along the walls. Spaniards stand in awe, touching what they once dreamed of in taverns and camps. Never has such wealth been gathered, one writes. But the gold is not admired for its form. It is fed to the furnaces. Works of artistry, centuries in the making, are melted into bars. For months, the stream does not stop. Nobles arrive with offerings, villages stripped of sacred relics. In Cuzco, the temple of the sun is emptied of its golden panels. In Cajamarca, the piles grow until Atahualpa points. The promise has been kept. The Spaniards are now rich beyond measure. Each man counts his share in bars and coins, enough to return to Spain as lords. Yet still, Atahualpa remains in chains. The ransom bought no freedom. Pizarro delays, weighing caution against greed. Some captains whisper, if he is released, the empire rises again. Summer of 1533. The chamber of gold has been emptied, melted, divided. The Spaniards are rich beyond anything they imagined, but their prisoner still sits alive in chains. Rumors swirl through Cajamarca. Scouts report Inca generals gathering armies in the highlands. Spaniards argue among themselves. Some urge release. Others whisper that to free Atahualpa is to invite destruction. Pizarro stages a trial. The charges are read aloud. Treason, idolatry, adultery, fratricide. Atahualpa listens in silence. He has no defense that the judges will hear. Sentence, death. The people of Cajamarca watch in horror as the son of the sun is led into the square at dusk. The Spaniards prepare firewood to burn him alive. At the last moment, the friar leans close. If Atahualpa accepts baptism, he will be spared the flames. He consents, is baptized Francisco, and is condemned instead to the garrote. The iron-collared tightens. Witnesses record that the crowd wails, some tearing their hair, others throwing themselves on the ground. When Atahualpa's body slumps, silence falls. The most powerful man in South America, captured by a few hundred foreigners, strangled in a plaza he had entered in triumph. Pizarro orders the corpse buried with Christian rites, but to the Andean world the sun has gone dark. The line of the Inca is broken, the empire stunned into chaos. With Atahualpa dead, the empire reels. His armies scatter, unsure whom to obey. Nobles argue over succession. Huascar gone, Atahualpa gone, rival claimants circling. The chain of command that held millions together snaps in an instant. Pizarro wastes no time. He marches his few hundred men deeper into the Andes, following the royal road toward Cusco. Villages that once supplied the Inca now open their storehouses to the Spaniards, whether by fear or calculation. Native factions, bitter from civil war, ally with the invaders. When the Spaniards enter Cusco, they see a city of temples, plazas, and palaces. Stone walls fit so tightly, no blade can slip between the blocks. They strip the shrines, melt down what remains of the empire's wealth, and plant their banners. Cusco, the sacred navel of the world, falls without a battle. In Europe, the news shocks even hardened courtiers. A handful of men have toppled the mightiest empire of the southern continent. The ransom of gold becomes legend, the betrayal infamous, but conquest breeds consequences. Resistance smolders in the Andes, for generations revolts, ambushes, kings crowned in exile. The death of Atahualpa does not end Inca power overnight, but it breaks the spine of unity. Francisco Pizarro walks away as governor, draped in titles, his men rich beyond their hopes. Yet his name is tied forever to Cajamarca, the trap, the ransom, the garrote. The kidnapping and execution of Atahualpa stands as one of the greatest betrayals in history. With it, an empire built over centuries was undone in a single square by fewer than 200 strangers who struck first and showed no mercy.